we have a huge update on the $1,400 stimulus check for seniors, and we have huge updates from Joe Manchin with reports coming in that he could consider leaving the Democratic Party. So in this video, we're going to have an update on the $1,400 stimulus check, what exactly happened with Joe Manchin, and what we expect to happen next. So let's discuss the details in this video, but before we do, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. I also have a second channel, so do me a huge favor, click on the link that's in the description of this video, subscribe to my second channel. I'm going to be giving away a stimulus check on that channel, just as a thank you for supporting my work, and it really goes a long way, guys. On that channel, we're going to be doing more updates on stimulus and Social Security, but it's going to be mixed in with kind of more of an interactive gameplay type of stuff, like playing bingo, announcing lottery winning numbers, playing casino games, more fun things like that. Of course, this channel is always fun as well, but it's a little more serious and more geared towards news updates. So with that said, thanks for your support, and I really appreciate every single one of you who have already subscribed to my second channel. Now, let's jump right into today's update on the $1,400 stimulus check and what is going on with Joe Manchin. Now, just to back up a little bit here, the Senior Citizens League, which is an advocacy group for seniors, is trying to press Congress to do a $1,400 stimulus check, which would specifically be for everybody on Social Security, SSI, SSDI, and VA benefits. Now, this is realistic because Bernie Sanders himself, who is in charge of writing the stimulus package, is trying to include a $1,000 stimulus check for seniors to help them pay for medical expenses. But the way it's currently written, it would be a debit card that could actually be used for anything. So although he's saying it's for medical costs, it would be a debit card, so you wouldn't actually just have to use it on Medicare, if that kind of makes sense. So Bernie wants to do a $1,000 stimulus check. Chuck Schumer is on board with that. And then we have the Senior Citizens League that wants him to increase it to $1,400. All of us know at this point that Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are the two main roadblocks in the way for getting the stimulus package done. And we had huge updates on Joe Manchin. There were reports that leaked that supposedly Joe Manchin was considering leaving the Democratic Party. And this article is titled, "Manchin tells his associates that he's considering leaving the Democratic Party and has an exit plan." Now, let's be clear here. When it comes to stimulus, this would be really, really bad for stimulus because Democrats need every single Democratic vote to get this stimulus package done because not a single Republican will vote for this. Now, if Joe Manchin leaves the Democratic Party, he could still vote for the package because Bernie Sanders, quite frankly, is an independent as well, and he votes with Democrats. But it's unclear. If he left the Democratic Party and became an independent, would he still vote mostly with the Democrats, or would he start leaning towards more of the Republican votes? It's really hard to tell. But either way, one thing we do know is that when he's in the Democratic Party, he is getting support from the Democratic Party, meaning he's getting funds, he's getting money from Democrats, he's getting support from the infrastructure, like when he runs his campaign for re-election. That whole Democratic National Convention gets behind Joe Manchin to help him win the re-election. So this is one incentive that he has to remain a Democrat. And it's also an incentive that he has to approve the stimulus package, right? So if he leaves the Democratic Party, our odds of getting the stimulus package done are going to go down just a little bit. Again, not to say it would go up in flames, but it would create a little less pressure for Joe Manchin to approve the stimulus package. So these reports came out, and Joe Manchin immediately said, no, that's not true. That's not what I said. And his explanation was that he told Joe Biden, I know it looks bad for you, that you guys have control, Democrats have control of the White House, the Senate, and the House. But yet we still can't get the stimulus package done. So what Joe Manchin's explanation is that he told President Biden, hey, if it makes things easier from you from a publicity standpoint, I could become an independent, and then you could tell the American people, hey, although we control the Senate and the House, it's difficult to get these independents on board. And he specifically said, me, Joe Manchin, and Bernie Sanders. That's the way you can kind of spin it to the American people. Like, hey, we control the White House, we control the Senate and the House, but the independents are a little more difficult to kind of get on board. And that was his explanation. Not that he wanted to leave the Democratic Party, not maliciously or to even join Republicans, but that he offered it to President Biden as a solution if it would make it easier for him to explain to the American people why he can't get Joe Manchin on board. If that kind of makes sense. I mean, it's kind of a weird explanation, but that was Joe Manchin's explanation as to what exactly happened and where this story came about. Because both the Democratic side and the Republican side have been freaking out since this news came out. Because this would have a massive impact on the power in Congress and the stimulus package getting approved. Now, the White House actually responded, so let's quickly take a look and see how the White House responded to reports that Joe Manchin might be considering leaving the Democratic Party.
On Joe Manchin, there were reports that he was thinking about becoming independent. He seemed to confirm or to say that he had offered maybe to the White House and to maybe to Senate leadership that maybe he would become an independent if that is what the White House or Senate leadership wanted him to do. Can you talk about that? Does the White House have a position on that? Do they have a problem with Joe Manchin being in the Democratic Party?
I think Joe Manchin spoke to this pretty clearly recently, as humanly possible. He was very clear about when he was asked this directly. I really don't have anything else to say about that. Look, the relationship that the president has, that we have with Joe Manchin, is strong. It's a mutual. The president has a mutual respect, and they have shared values. And so, again, we've been working in good faith with him. He's been working in good faith with us. And he actually spoke to that, I believe, recently, and was very clear.
And so you want the White House wants him in the Democratic Party. You can just say that.
That's his decision to make. That's not my decision to make. I'm not going to, we're not going to say what party somebody belongs to. That's for them to make, and that's, for him to answer, which he did. He answered that very, very clearly. I cannot say the words that he used from here, but he did very much answer that question. And I'm going to leave, because I leave that there because my daughter at some point is going to see this, and so she'll call me out, so I can't use those words. But look, the president had...
Okay, so no Jen Psaki today. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but it looks like she had a replacement today. Must have taken the day off for whatever reason. But with that said, like usual, the White House basically sidestepped the question. But this is basically the Democratic response. They're saying, you know what? Talk to Joe Manchin. He answered the question. So let's take a look and actually see what Joe Manchin's response was. But before we do, let's take a look and see how the Republican side responded. Now, this is Fox News. These are analysts, political analysts from Fox News, and this is their reaction to reports that Joe Manchin might be considering leaving the Democratic Party. So let's take a look, and then we'll look at Joe Manchin's response himself.
We haven't been able to confirm this ourselves. We don't know if it is accurate, but Mother Jones says it's got a scoop that apparently Joe Manchin has been telling associates that if he doesn't get his way on the reconciliation plan, he may leave the Democratic Party. Now, we don't know if he would become an independent and vote with the Democrats like Bernie Sanders, or if he'd consider becoming a Republican. But if this is accurate, that is big news.
That would be big news. I actually wrote a column about 3 months ago saying he should do exactly that. I mean, he has a lot more in common with the Republican Party than he does with the Democratic Party. As he said, I'm not a socialist. I'm not a liberal. I'm a conservative. His state is a very, very deep red state. And, I think what the Democrats are, again, just like they're driving school board moms into the hands of the Republican Party, these suburban voters who supported them, they're driving people like Joe Manchin away by pursuing socialism when they don't have a mandate for socialism. The voters did not elect the Democratic Party, Joe Biden president, and put Democrats in charge of the Congress in order to pass a socialist agenda, because we got a 50-50 Senate. They got a 3-vote majority, narrow majority in the House. That's a mandate for compromise. Joe Manchin is trying to compromise. He's trying to bring bipartisanship back. He's trying to reach across the aisle, and the Democrats are pushing him and pushing him and pushing him to vote for things that he doesn't believe in, and the people of West Virginia don't believe in. So at some point, if your party doesn't want you, and your party is telling you have to do things you don't believe in, maybe you should go to a party where more people share your beliefs.
Obviously, Republicans wouldn't mind if Joe Manchin joined the Republican Party, right? I mean, the same thing with Democrats. If another Republican senator wanted to join the Democratic Party, I'm sure they would welcome them with open arms, right? Because it gives them more control in Congress. And specifically right now, if Democrats were to lose Joe Manchin, they would technically lose their control in the Senate, right? Which would make it almost impossible to get this stimulus package done. Again, unless Joe Manchin voted for it, which even as a Democrat, he's making things very, very difficult. So as an independent, you would imagine he would make things potentially even more difficult, right? So that was kind of the Republican side of things, what they think. Obviously, they wouldn't mind having Joe Manchin on board because it would make it more difficult to approve stimulus. Now, let's be clear here. This $1,400 stimulus check has a realistic chance of getting done. Again, because Bernie Sanders wants to do a $1,000 stimulus check, and Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and President Biden are on board with that. Then we have the Senior Citizens League that wants to increase it to $1,400, but we currently have Joe Manchin who wants to make the stimulus package even smaller, which would make it difficult to include a $1,400 stimulus check. Now, a lot of people are saying that Joe Manchin only threatened to leave the Democratic Party to create more leverage so Democrats would stop bothering him about doing these massive stimulus checks. But then his response was, well, I didn't actually threaten Democrats. I offered this to them as a solution to market it to the American people, to kind of explain to the American people why I'm not on board with this package, because I'm not a Democrat, I'm an independent. So take that for what you will. It seems like a lame excuse to me, but that was what Joe Manchin said. Now, let's watch this clip, which actually shows his response. He actually responded directly to reporters, and quite frankly, he got really, really angry when these reports came out. So he didn't like these reports. Whether or not they were true, he did not want these things leaked out into the public. Obviously, because it looks bad if he's leaving the Democratic Party. At least it looks bad for Democratic voters, right? Like if you vote Democrat in West Virginia, which is the state that he's from, and you hear that he might be leaving the Democratic Party, I mean, you might not vote for him in re-election, right? But with that said, let's take a look and watch Joe Manchin's response.
There's plenty of headlines and articles. There's plenty of stuff on the internet. Senators don't respond to all of it. But Joe Manchin really going out of his way on the record in his own West Virginia style to knock this down. We did play it, but it's good enough to play twice. Here's Manchin saying there's nothing to reports he would leave the party.
I can't control rumors, and it's bull. That's it. It's bull. Bull spelled with a B-U-L-L capital B.
Che, what's going on here?
Well, let's be very clear. Joe Manchin almost certainly is threatening to leave the Democratic Party, and he almost certainly will never leave the Democratic Party. The reason is he has no future as a Republican in West Virginia. He could not win a Republican primary. Mitch McConnell could not guarantee him the Republican nomination. And the reason is that Mitch McConnell cannot control Donald Trump. Now, the Republican governor of West Virginia, who is basically Jim Justice, he's the president of the Donald Trump fan club in that state, he doesn't care what Mitch McConnell thinks. He cares what Donald Trump thinks. The Republican voters in West Virginia care about Donald Trump. They don't care about Mitch McConnell. So Joe Manchin will stay a Democrat because, quite simply, he has nowhere to go. Now, why is he threatening to do this? It's very clear. You know, it's negotiating. It's negotiating room for him. He is being threatened by Democratic donors who are unhappy with how he is torpedoing Biden's, not only his agenda, but his climate change agenda. And he's saying, look, I can just pull up stakes and turn the Senate Republican right now. That's why he's threatening to do it, but it's not real. It's sort of like James Bond in Casino Royale where he's playing poker, except Joe Manchin isn't James Bond, and you can always tell his tell.
Your point about Manchin is, okay, what is this and why does he want to do it this way? In other words, privately reminding the Democrats he has leverage may work for him. If it publicly turns into him being a disloyal Democrat, that could affect donors, his standing. I mean, that's a different kettle of fish. And there were headlines, of course, when this happened to George Bush in a very similar Senate situation where you had a moderate Vermont Senator, Jeff Ertz, both of the GOP. He really did make good on it. This was what he said, announcing switching parties, also at a crucial time for that new president. Take a look.
I will leave the Republican Party and become an independent. Tax and spending decisions. Control of the Senate will be changed by my decision.
When you see Senator Manchin, whom everyone's learned a lot more about in this Biden era, when you see Manchin really go this hard, I mean, it wasn't like he swore once angrily. He swore repeatedly and then drew attention to it by saying how to spell it. something went farther than he wanted in the way this story is unfolding.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a big difference between Jeffords and Manchin. The big difference was Tom Daschle could guarantee Jim Jeffords security in the Democratic Party in Vermont. The difference here is that Mitch McConnell cannot guarantee Joe Manchin security in the Republican Party of West Virginia. That is the major big difference. The second big difference, I think, is that Manchin has prided himself, and his ego is very much built on a Manchin brand that is independent, where he is a Democrat, but he's a Democrat who tells honest truth to his own party. If he were to change and go to the Republican Party, that destroys that brand. That is not the case with Jim Jeffords. Jim Jeffords was really the last of the Yankee Republicans, and he finally switched to Democrat. What I think is going on with Manchin is he basically has to send a message to Democrats and Democratic donors: look, do not even think about pulling your money from me for my reelection. I'm the best you got, and I have some negotiating room. It's a power play.
All right, so really good clip kind of explaining what's going on here. See, Joe Manchin is kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth here, right? Because in private, he's telling President Biden, hey, if you guys want, I'll leave the Democratic Party as a favor to you. But really, it's kind of a threat, right? Because they're going to lose control of the Senate. Then publicly, he's saying, no, that's not true. That's not true. I would never do this. Because Democratic donors who give money don't just give them to Manchin. They're giving them to Manchin because he's part of a certain party, which right now is the Democratic Party, right? This is why you don't see very many senators who are independents. There's only a couple, like Bernie Sanders, because it's hard for them to maintain enough funding to actually compete with people who are affiliated with a party, right? Now, and he just pointed out that Mitch McConnell cannot promise Joe Manchin that he will have enough funding or enough backing from the Republican Party in West Virginia to win re-election. And that partly is because Trump has a strong base in West Virginia and Mitch McConnell doesn't. So Joe Manchin would kind of have to align himself more with Trump to get that support from the Republican side in West Virginia, right? So basically Joe Manchin is trying to thread the needle here, but at the same time maintain his moderacy so he can get reelected. But at the same time, he's kind of threatening Democrats, which I'll be honest with you, doesn't really bode well for the stimulus package, right? I mean, we're trying to get this stimulus package done. We're trying to get $1,400 stimulus checks for seniors. Then we have Joe Manchin, who is kind of forcing Democrats to lower the price tag of the stimulus package. Now, they've already lowered it to around $2 trillion, and now he's still threatening to leave the Democratic Party, right? Now, obviously, it looks like that was a bluff, because as soon as these things came out into the general public, he immediately said it was BS. He actually swore. You could tell he was very upset about this, right? So it seems like this is a bluff, which is good for stimulus and good for the $1,400 stimulus check, because Joe Manchin is kind of playing a game of chicken here with Democrats, right? Who is going to fold first? And it looks like his bluff was just called. He was upset when things came out saying that he might leave the Democratic Party. So it looks like he was bluffing. But guys, there are a lot of things still to come. We should have a lot of updates in the next couple of weeks as things develop. Democrats are trying to get the stimulus package done by Halloween, so that's about 9 days from now. So we should have a lot of updates in the coming week. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will keep you posted on the next 2 stimulus packages, Social Security changes, and daily news updates as well. But with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching, and until the next video, take care and have a great day.